Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. It's an engaging and enlightening talk show on life, relationships, and the business of life. Grab a cup of juice and just chill. Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. Live life. Live fully.
Good to join me on the show. This is Omobola Stephen. I'm the podcast host of Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen, a self-improvement and personal development topics. We focus on destructive mindset conversations that is going to transform your life from where you are to where you need to be, with a destructive kind of conversations, yet constructive in nature. We expert and professionals who are adept in these topics. We share life transforming insight that is going to transform your life indeed. Now, today I have Dr. Mark A. Hicks, who is the author, speaker, counselor, life coach. He's also a podcast host, just as I am on the show. He's passionate about unraveling the mystery behind love and relationships. So we will be delving more on these important topics we can never get exhausted about. Welcome to the show with me once again, Dr. Mark A. Hicks.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's my pleasure having you on the show, and my audience are looking forward to a really life-transforming discussion today going forward. Let me continue with my earlier statement about you having a passion in unraveling the mystery behind love and relationships. Now, that's really awesome and good to know. But we'll be exploring all about love and relationship. It's an inexhaustive topics that you agree with me. So the first question is, why do you believe that healthy relationships are the cornerstone of a fulfilling life and career?
Everyone is looking for a life that matters and healthy relationships that last. And those two things lead to one another. If we're going to have thriving families, we're going to have successful careers, we're going to need to work with people. We're going to need to have connections with one another. And so love and relationships are key to every area of life: family, community, career. Every area of life, we are called to be together and to work together well, to build the life that matters, to accomplish things as our society, to live happily as families. And while we are around a lot of people and we have a lot of acquaintances, we don't always know how to build those healthy relationships. Many people came out of dysfunctional families where they didn't really learn the skill set of building relationships. And so that's what I want to do, is give people the skill set of love, of building healthy relationships. It doesn't have to be a mystery. We can learn the skill set to build the relationships that we want and need and deserve in our lives.
Oh, right. Thanks for that. But really, we created to build healthy relationships, which we just shared, and that's good to know that. But we have conflicts and loneliness, which is typical to healthy relationships on this side of eternity. So the question is, do you think that loneliness and conflict they are really a pressing relational issue in today's world? And how can we begin to address that?
Loneliness, conflicts, these are things that are going to come in life. They're natural to have those feelings, to have conflicts with one another. But the key is to know how to work those out, to have a strategy, to know how to build relationships. Conflicts don't have to destroy us. They don't have to destroy relationships. They can be an avenue to building cooperation, to building projects together, to building closer relationships. But so often in the midst of conflicts, we pull away, we become frightened, we become defensive, we start putting up walls and barriers, emotional barriers to one another. And that creates that sense of loneliness and creates even more conflicts. While it is part of the world, we can use those conflicts to actually come together and to build healthier relationships.
Now, you had a toxic and forced marriage and a painful divorce. But why did you conclude that it was toxic?
Yeah, that I didn't always know the things that I know now. When I was younger, I was in a toxic first marriage. It was there's so many things that went on in that, and I always am careful with this question because I have a policy of never criticizing my ex-wife publicly. I don't want to be that person that criticizes her, but uh, there is a sense that in toxic relationships things do not get worked out, that conflicts and arguments that can be natural in a relationship never get worked out. They are always leading to just the next argument. There's not a way uh, to mend that relationship when it's toxic. One fight just leads to the next fight. And so in these toxic relationships, we find ourselves very often trying to twist into a knot emotionally, trying to find that thing that works, and yet nothing seems to work. And sadly, some relationships do have to end. As a relationship coach, sometimes people are surprised to hear me say that. But every relationship cannot be saved. We have to have the wisdom to know how to build healthy relationships. But there are times that things become toxic, they are abusive, and sadly, they have to end. And that is a grief process. That's a difficult decision. I don't say that lightly, but part of the wisdom of relationships is knowing that we cannot salvage all of them, that when they are toxic and abusive, no one deserves to be treated that way. And so we have to make those very tough decisions. But that doesn't mean we can't have relationships. I have gone on from there. That was one of the things that sort of planted a seed in my life of wanting to know what love is and how to build relationships the right way. And so I've gone on. I am married once again now. I'm very happily married. I often say that I've had a bad marriage and a good marriage, and good is better. And it can be a greatly enjoyable life when you have those healthy relationships.
Well, Mike, you talk about toxic relationship, but I'd like us to also delve a bit further. If one is in a toxic relationship, now do you suggest they cope or they find the exit door? You know what I mean? I know when you're in a relationship and the kids are already involved, a partner is just trying to make things work. You know that it can be very tiring and frustrating, and when you realize that it's just a one-man ship, situation in the relationship. So what's your own advice in this kind of scenario?
Yeah, if a person is in a toxic relationship, you need to get help. Uh, Keeping secrets is the worst thing you can do in the midst of a toxic relationship. Getting professional help, getting counseling is really a necessary thing. It's also a good idea to have a support group of friends and family that you can trust and talk to. You have to be selective in who you speak with sometimes. Not everyone is going to give you wisdom, so be careful who you speak with. But keeping a secret in the midst of toxic and abusive relationships does not help. It makes things much worse. Get the help you need, and particularly find a therapist that can help you work through these things, because it is very difficult, particularly when children are involved in a relationship, to know how to navigate that and how can we work this out, and is it possible to work this out, and are there things that I must live with, or is this time to end the relationship? It is very difficult in the midst of all that stress to know how to navigate those questions. And so it is necessary to find friends, family members to be supportive, and particularly to get professional help from a therapist.
Yeah, now that sounds like, oh, it's something that is automatic or something simple, straightforward to do. But I tell you, Matt, sometimes we just want to keep our things, our stuff to ourselves, especially in this era of, social media. And, I get to share my own life story with this person, even though you think it's a professional or a therapist. We just have the kind of mindset like, I don't want to divulge what is happening in my private life, to the outside world. That mentality is there. So how can we begin to address that?
It is very difficult. Yeah, we kind of live in a contrast society that you're right. We have social media where we share so much, but we don't really share ourselves. And going to get professional help can be intimidating. It can be frightening. Talking with a therapist, sharing things can be a very difficult process. But one of the things I hope people will understand is that when we have a physical problem with our health, we go to a doctor. When we have problems with our dental work, with our teeth, we go and see a dentist. When we have trouble with our car, we go to a mechanic. And the same is true with mental health issues and relationship issues. If we are in a difficult situation, there are professionals there to help. We wouldn't think that I can just tough it out when if I had a physical illness, or I would just kind of guess about how to fix my own car. I would go and get professional help. And counselors are just as necessary. Everyone should have a counselor just like you have a doctor or a dentist or a mechanic, because life is too complicated. Maybe at one time people could fix their cars because cars were pretty simple many decades ago. A little bit of mechanical knowledge, you could fix that. But today you have to have a lot of equipment and a lot of skill to fix a modern car. And I would say life is similar. At one time, life was simpler. I'm not going to say it was better or worse. I'll leave that to other people's judgment. But there was a time life was simpler. Today, life is very complicated. Relationships are very complicated. And because of that, I think we need to overcome what may still be stigma or fear, and be willing to see a counselor just like we would see a doctor or a dentist or a mechanic when we were having difficulty.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Mark Hicks, for that. And now for some folks who don't want to go the therapist way, what other strategies can they employ, in addressing toxic relationships? I believe that, if we don't want to go out, there's some steps we can begin to take inwards, right, between the two couples, and how we can make things work. Do you want to talk more on that?
Yeah, in my book, I talk about I teach the 5 components of love. And if people will take these 5 components and practice them in their life, I believe they can build healthy relationships. If you have 2 people that are willing to work with these 5 components and practice them in their life. And if you don't mind, I'll just give them briefly here. The 5 components are, the first one is grief. And people are surprised to hear that sometimes, that we have a discussion of love and I begin with grief. But when we are in relationships, and particularly when we're in difficult relationships, we're going to get hurt. And life is going to hurt sometimes. We are going to have difficulties in life. And when we do, it's easy to put up walls, emotional barriers, keep people out of our life, kind of retreat from the people who care about us, and retreat from relationships to try to protect ourselves. But that only makes things worse. The first thing we need to do is learn how to grieve, learn how to heal from the hurts of life, so that we can come back into relationships and stay connected. Even though we may have emotional scars from that pain of life, grief helps us heal so that we can move on to a better life from that hurt. The second component is emotion. We have to have that emotional connection, particularly in difficult relationships that begins to get strained. People pull apart. We have to reconnect emotionally and say the things out loud that we do care, that we do love each other, that we do appreciate, and say what we appreciate. The third component is practicality. And this is where many relationships break down, is the practical side. Many people have said things like, I love them, but I can't live with them. The practical side is learning to live together, making financial decisions, communication skills, getting treatment for mental health conditions. Things like depression and anxiety can take a real toll, not only on our life, but on our relationships. And those are treatable conditions. If we take care of our mental health, our finances, our communication, and other practical things, we live together in a healthier way, a better way, and enhance that emotional connection. The fourth component is acceptance. And it's not only accepting our partner or accepting our family, our friends, it is accepting and loving ourselves first. Brene Brown did some great research on this. A lot of people don't realize you cannot love someone else more than you love yourself. That's the ceiling. How you love yourself is going to be how you love others. And many relationships struggle because the people aren't loving themselves. They don't accept themselves. And so they struggle to accept and love their partner or their family or their friends. Love really begins with us. It's organic. It is something that grows within us. And so if you want to have healthy, thriving relationships, you have to start with loving yourself. And finally, the fifth component is passion. And that's the sense of having a passion for life, of enjoying life, of enjoying what you do and the people you're with. And remember to have fun. Life is serious sometimes. That's why practicality is the third component. There is tragedy in life. That's why we have the first component of love, which is grief. But in the midst of all of that, we can't forget to have fun. When we keep our passion in life and we keep our passion for one another in our relationships, we keep things fun and enjoyable, then we keep that spark in our life. If we practice all five of those, if people in relationships practice all five of those components, grieving the tough times, keeping an emotional connection, living together well in a practical way, loving and accepting ourselves first, and keeping a passion for life, you practice those five things in your relationships, you can build healthy relationships. Even difficult, struggling relationships can be saved and rebuilt with these five components.
Really, we've got a lot of work to do, Doctor. I hope you agree with me on that. Now, let's talk about relationship and career. Can there be a balance? That's number one question. I have two questions for you on that. Talking about relationship and career, number one is, can there be a balance between these two? And also, are there particular relationships that a person needs to build, to have a successful career?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. If we are going to be have a life that is full, then it means both family and career for a lot of people. We have things both inside our homes and outside of our homes that mean a lot to us. And part of a successful relationship and a healthy relationship is supporting our spouse, our partner, our family members in their career. And so, yes, it takes some balance, of course. It takes some coordination to make sure you are paying attention to both your career and your family. That can be challenging. Life gets very busy. But yes, absolutely. You can support each other in that career. And as you're thriving in your career, you bring that home, that excitement, that passion home to your family. And that's just part of that passion of life. It's not just passion in the relationship, but the passion of life that you have in your career can actually enhance your relationships as you are excited about your day, as you are sharing the things that you're doing in life. But as far as how relationships build in our career, it's the same principles. Those five components, which we would use in marriages and romantic relationships and family relationships, can be used in our career as well, to build relationships with coworkers, to build relationships with the people that we work with. Those same things apply, because everything in our career is not going to go well all the time. And so we need ways of coming back from that. And that's what grief is. On those tough days, on those struggles, on those failures, how do we come back from that and stay engaged? And that's that first component of grief. We need emotional connections with our coworkers. It's not the same emotional connection as we would have with a family member, a spouse, but there are emotional connections that we have. We appreciate our coworkers. When we appreciate our coworkers, we build that bond. We have to work together in practical ways. We have to have the confidence and the reliance on ourselves, understanding, loving what we do, who we are and what we do and what we bring to our career, that fourth component of love, of acceptance, and having a passion for what we do, having a passion, going to work every day with a sense of passion and fun and enjoyment of loving what we do. Those same components of love, while it's a different kind of love, apply to our career and our relationships with our coworkers, just like they do with our family.
Doctor, how do our career couples make their relationships work? Maybe couples who have kids in it, or those who don't have kids. How do they balance? How do they strike a balance that ensure that the relationship work while they face the career life?
Yeah, it's very difficult in a very busy world, and the struggles when you have particularly couples that have both have careers, you have children, you're balancing a lot, and it takes some straightforward communication. You have to talk about things. You have to make sure that your partner is up to date on all the things that's going on, that you're coordinating things well, that you are organized. But a big part of that is respecting what your partner does. So many times when we're busy, we get caught up in what we're doing and how important that is and how stressful it may be. And we get caught up in our own work, and we want we want the support from our partner, but we forget to respect what our partner is doing and give them the respect that they need as well. If we really understand the importance of the career, that both partners have, and respect that and show respect for it, celebrating together when things are going well, supporting each other when it's not, and coordinating, never acting like my career is more important than my partner's, always coordinating how do we get things done with the kids, with the household, and working together in that, coordinating that in advance, talking about it, and being very straightforward about what has to be done, who's going to do it, and how, and when, are all just very practical matters that are straightforward, but they get lost in the emotion of sometimes selfishness or stress or busyness. Keeping those practical matters organized and communicated is a critical aspect for couples.
Doctor, my audience will be super excited to learn of any important projects that you think it's going to be beneficial to them in the long run. This is just the right time for you to do so, if there's any.
In my projects?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just recently launched my podcast. It's the Learning Love Podcast. It's available on Spotify and Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to podcasts. And I have just recently launched that. It's very exciting for me. And I'm talking about these same things. I'm talking each week about how to live out these relationships and how to navigate these scenarios that I talk about in the book. I give the foundations in the book, but in the podcast, I talk about the specific scenarios and how do we live these things out. And so I'd love for folks to take a look at my book and to hear my podcast. And you can find all of that on my website, which is markahicks.com, M-A-R-K, my middle initial A, H-I-C-K-S, markahicks.com. I have easy links to my book, my podcast, my YouTube, and all the other things that are going on in my life right now.
Thank you once again, Dr. Mark Hicks, for sharing that insights with my audience. Really had a great time with your profound insight, especially talking about relationship and love. You're an author, speaker, counselor, and also a life coach. And also you double as a podcast host, just as I do. Thank you for your time and for the valuable contribution to the topic of discussion. I and my audience wish you best of luck once again in your endeavors. If you'd like to catch up with any of these episodes of the show, you can do so on any cross-promotion platforms or any podcast distribution platforms online. Do have a great time as you listen to the show. I'll talk to you soon. This is Omobola Stephen. Thank you once again, Dr. Max. That was so great show we had. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you subscribe and leave us a review.